California just announced that they're bringing back the insanely popular Dream for All program this April, which gives first-time homebuyers up to $150,000 to buy their first home in California. But there are some huge changes coming to the program this year that you want to be aware of if you're trying to use this program and take advantage of this huge opportunity. In this video, we're going to go over exactly what the California Dream for All program is and who qualifies for it. We'll also go over some of the big changes that are coming to the program that are different from this year to last year and how that impacts you as a first-time homebuyer, as well as go over some specific examples of who can use this and how this is actually going to be a benefit for you in the long run. And my hope is by the end of this video, you're going to find out if the California Dream for All will be your dream come true in 2024. And now before we get started, if you have any questions during this video about Dream for All or buying a home in general in California, you can book a one-on-one call with my team. We'll be glad to answer any of your questions, as well as share some of the tips and tricks that we're using right now with home buyers in California to help you save a lot more time and money when you buy your first home. But with that out of the way, let's just jump right on in. Okay, so for starters, the California Dream for All program works with something called shared appreciation. Now, this works a little bit differently than most first-time homebuyer programs. Now, it is the same in the sense that the down payment assistance comes in the form of a loan. However, the way that it's repaid is a little bit different. So here's a great example of how shared appreciation works. So let's say you bought a home originally for $500,000. You would get a first mortgage of $400,000, just a normal conventional loan, and the Dream for All program would give you $100,000 through the shared appreciation. Now, let's say 5 years later, the home goes up in value to $640,000 and you decide to sell. And so when you went to sell your home for $640,000, you've paid down your mortgage, so you only owe about $370 on it. You repay what's due to California Dream for All, the $100,000 plus the 20%, so that's $128,000. So that leaves you with homeowner equity of $142,000 for yourself. Okay, but now let's dive into the actual eligibility of this program. Who can qualify for this? Because it sounds great, but we still need to meet some guidelines. So something about this program is that everyone on the loan has to meet these borrower requirements, meaning every borrower on the loan needs to be a first-time homebuyer, must be a citizen or a national of the United States or a qualified alien, and meet the credit and income requirements that we'll get into in just a little bit. But now on to probably the most controversial change to this program, which is the addition of the first generational homebuyer requirement. So according to CalHFA's definition, a first-generation homebuyer is defined as a homebuyer who has not been on title, held ownership interest, or been named to a mortgage on a home on a permanent foundation and on owned land in the United States in the last 7 years. So additionally, to the best of the homebuyer's knowledge, whose parents, biological or adoptive, do not have any present ownership interest in the home in the United States, or if they're deceased, whose parents did not have any ownership interest at the time of death in the United States. Or if that doesn't apply to you, an individual who at any time has been placed in foster care or institutional care in the United States as well. So in reading this, there's really two things that you want to consider: your own eligibility as well as technically your parents' eligibility as well. So not only do you have to meet the typical requirements as a first-time homebuyer, no ownership interest in a principal residence in the last 3 years, but on top of that, you can't have also technically co-signed on like a parent's home or even a sibling's home loan in the last 7. Now going to the part that has to deal with your parents, right? This is really where that first-generation homeowner definition really kicks in. What this basically says is that your parents can't currently own a home in the United States. And on top of that, if they've already passed away, they can't have owned a home at the time of their death either. This is probably because most children probably end up inheriting the home, and even if they don't keep it, maybe they sold it and pocketed those proceeds. Now, it's also important to note that it says to the best of the home buyer's knowledge. So I'm curious to see exactly how they're going to make you prove this. They'll probably have you sign some sort of affidavit or waiver at the time of applying for this loan. But it is curious that they're just saying, to the best of your knowledge, hopefully your parents don't own a home right now. Okay, so not only are they making big changes to who qualifies for this program based on first generation homebuyer requirements, and they kind of made it a little less strict than what I originally thought, which is great. But where they are tightening down is the income limits. CalHFA has been notoriously known for having pretty lax income limits compared to other down payment assistance programs. This is because they use their own income limits versus the Fannie Mae ones. Now, while CalHFA isn't exactly using those same low limits, they did significantly lower the limits specifically for the Dream for All program. So let's compare what the income limits were back in April of 2023 versus what they'll be this year for when the program relaunches. Okay, so for starters, let's take a look at what the current CalHFA income limits are if you were just using their normal down payment assistance program, which gives you about 3% down. So in San Diego, the current income limit is about $231,000 a year. Contra Costa was really popular for me as well at $292,000. Los Angeles, $194,000. So pause this screen if you need to find your county on here. But you can see CalHFA's income limits are honestly pretty flexible for their standard program. But this is what they were using last year for the Dream for All program, and now in 2024, they've lowered the income limits specifically for the Dream for All program. So now this is the list for the 2024 income limits specifically for Dream for All. And now you can see just those ones we talked about before. San Diego was 231 currently, but for Dream for All, it's 185. Los Angeles is down to 155 here. Contra Costa is down to 234. San Bernardino is 149. Pause this once again if you want to take a look at your specific county. But there is a big difference between the different counties now for the Dream for All program. And I actually think that the biggest reason why they've changed the income limits is to honestly restrict the number of people that can qualify for it. But not only that, they really want to limit the kinds of homes people are buying with this program as well. If you've been trying to buy your home in California for any amount of time, I don't have to explain to you the fact that prices of homes are high and higher interest rates haven't done you really any favors as far as what you could afford. So effectively, by lowering the income limits with the California Dream for All program, that limits the amount of homes that you can actually qualify for as well. And I think the biggest reason why is they want this program to be sort of a revolving door of funds. Because ultimately, you don't pay back this program until you sell or you do your second refinance. So if you end up buying your forever home right from the start with this program, they're not going to see those funds for another 30 years. Okay, so when we're talking about what the income limits are, we had a lot of questions about this last time around. And by CalHFA's definition, it's the annual income limit combined for everyone who's going to be on the loan. So even if you have other members of your family who make income, but they're not going to be on the loan, you don't have to count it towards this income limit. Additionally, this is only what we need to qualify for as well. So for example, if you're co-signing with your spouse and your spouse's income puts you over the income limit, but we only need your income to actually qualify for the program, we don't have to count your spouse's income. We can just use yours as long as you fall under the income limit and it's enough to qualify. Now, I think the biggest change to this program overall is how they're going to actually be releasing the funds. Back in 2023, this was a first come, first served basis, and the entirety of the funding was dried up within just 9 days. This time around, they want to make it a little bit harder to get the funds, but also easier on people to get under a contract. As you can imagine, most people were rushing not only to get approved for this program, but also to get under contract for a home before the funds ran out. So this time they're adding 2 additional things. They're adding a lottery system and a voucher system to the program. So the lottery system is going to be pretty straightforward. In April, they're going to open up a website where you can register for this program and get into that lottery. As long as you meet all of the requirements that are laid out, which a loan officer should be able to help you out, figure out if you can even qualify for this in the first place, you'll be entered into the lottery. And at a certain point down the road, they'll start drawing names out of the hat essentially and selecting people who are going to get vouchers for the Dream for All program. Now, the voucher essentially holds your place in line for about 90 days. So if you are selected in the lottery and you get your voucher, you're gonna have 90 days to get under contract on a home. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to find a home and close within those 90 days. You just have to get under contract and reserve your lock with CalHFA within those 90 days of that voucher. And honestly, I think the voucher part at least is a great change to the program. Number one, it forces people to meet the requirements and make sure they're vetted for it, but also it gives homebuyers time to actually look around for a home, which most homebuyers didn't have that luxury of last time around. This also prevents anyone from flipping from a normal purchase to the CalHFA Dream for All program, which we saw a lot of last time around too. Personally, I didn't think it was very fair that people who were already under contract on a home who had their own down payment flipped around and used CalHFA's money instead, because that money could have gone to a homebuyer who actually needed it versus somebody who had the money and didn't want to spend it. So let's just go ahead and take a look at an example of what it would look like to use the California Dream for All program right now at its absolute maximum. As of today, the interest rate for a CalHFA conventional mortgage is 6.5% for a 30-year fixed. So we'll compare apples to apples. We'll go to the absolute maximum, which will be a $750,000 home. Putting 10% down of your own money, that would mean $75,000, including closing costs. That would put you roughly around $89,000 out of pocket. And your total monthly payment, including everything right now, would be about $5,200 a month. But if you were to use the CalHFA Dream for All program, getting the 20% down benefit, that would drop your payment all the way down to $4,600 a month. And not only that, because you're not putting a huge down payment on a home, that means your total out of pocket for this would be roughly $26,000. So what I actually want to do is I want to compare that to what it would be roughly with the same out of pocket and roughly the same payment, putting your own money down, and how much more home you could get using the Dream for All program. So check this out. Let's say you were pre-approved to buy a $600,000 home with 3% down in today's market. So comparatively, you would have about the same rate, right? You'd be paying about $4,500 a month. Your total cash out of pocket would be $32,000 roughly, 31. But if you were able to qualify for the California Dream for All, not only would that boost your purchase price from $600,000 to $750,000 for about the same payment, you'd actually end up spending less out of pocket doing that as well, coming in at $26,000 versus $31,000. So You're paying a little bit more monthly, but you end up paying less out of pocket for a way bigger home if you're able to use this program. So once again, the voucher website opens up later on this year in April, but it's going to be very important for you to get pre-approved for a mortgage now and meet with a loan officer to make sure that you meet all of those requirements. And hopefully if you've gotten to this point of the video, I hope I've earned your business and I hope you book a one-on-one call with my team. We'd be glad to help you. We're licensed throughout the state of California to help you no matter where you're buying. Out of the hundreds of home buyers that me and my team talked to last year, we were actually lucky enough to get 6 of them under contract and into their dream homes, and I could not be happier for them. I think this is a wonderful program for those who qualify and for those who are going to be lucky enough to actually get into the lottery system later on this year. And so once again, if you made it this far and you still have some questions, make sure you book a one-on-one call with my team, and I can't wait to talk to you soon.